hear people use a word, and I didn't really realize it at the time, but I thought, among other things, that it was rather haughty and somewhat pretentious for those to use that term, that they were pretenders to knowledge and so forth. As I get older, I realize, here we go again with the getting older thing, I realize that idea, that thing that they used to use, that word, which is discernment, is really something that's exceptionally important. I want to talk today about discernment on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, Kurt, and today is Saturday, the 16th of April of 2022. I actually took the time to do my dates correctly today. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That's the Kurt's Religion and Politics page there, on Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com, on Minds.com, MINDS.com, on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group primarily there, on Parler, Gab, Twitter, or wherever else you happen to be picking me up today. Subject for today, as I say, is discernment, and I'm going to go through my notes really quick in order to give you an idea exactly what I'm trying to say. In this ever-changing world, it's more important than ever to have discernment. I've said any number of times I'm not much of a celebrant of holy days. I count as an example of that the day currently, and for some time now, referred to as Easter. That said, I can think of only a couple of days that are as important as that one in all of history. They would be the day of the birth of Jesus, what's generally considered to be Christmas, errantly in my view, and the day of his being nailed to a cross. There's great sadness and great joy in those days. Sadness when Jesus was hung on a cross, and shame even for me today for that being the case. Joy when he was born and at his resurrection. But a large part of the point for me is to get to where I celebrate or otherwise consider and remember each of those events every single day. I'm no expert at that, but I promise I truly try. And failure is not a reason to stop attempting it. To me, this is an example of where far too many folks lack an important trait or quality. That would be discernment. For a long time, and frankly, even now, I fail at it. That is discernment as well. I want to talk about a couple of related things where this is concerned. You can be assured they are not the only ones that count or matter, and some of them are more earthly, if you will, but I'm going to talk about some of the ones that matter. It should probably matter more to Christians. Rather, they're things that came to me listening to a local radio program. The first is the alignment of what are counted Christian holy days, or holidays as people like to refer to them in the present moment, with Jewish events, Jewish occurrences, things that happened to the Jews. Do I believe that happened, that alignment, by God's express intent? Yes, I do. That is to say, do I believe Easter season lining up with the Passover, for example, and things of that sort were intentional? I certainly do. I definitely, absolutely do. Does this mean Christians must, quote, celebrate the Passover, end of quote, at, quote, Easter time, end of quote, or any other? I not only don't believe so, but I believe it can be harmful, and more than anything else, for the Jews. I could get into the why of that, but it's really a subject for another day, and probably one that'll take its own podcast at some point. Fact is, though, I think it can be a perfectly acceptable thing for some folks to do that. That is, celebrate things like Passover at Easter. On top of everything else, I think taking that day to mark the time of resurrection is somewhat bogus in any case. I think that we're trying to make the argument we know when that day was, and I don't think we do. I want to discuss one other idea. It is the concept that the founding of the United States was Judeo-Christian in nature. Now, I want to be clear on something, where I believe it's totally reasonable to say that. It was on a Judeo-Christian basis. I don't believe trying to couple Judaism and Christianity such that they're joined at the hip is a correct thing to do. I don't think that's right. They're obviously and inextricably joined. And that's as it should be. That said, assuming Christians ought to act as Jews is not something I hold correct. We'll get into that as we continue to discuss things today. Hope you'll find what I have to say useful. Look, okay, I don't want to lose the initial thread of what I'm talking about. The initial thing that I'm discussing is the idea of discernment, being able to understand what things are real, what things are important, and what things are not real or not important. This is an extremely important thing. I'm using these other subjects, the idea of Easter itself, the idea of Christmas, the idea of the day that Jesus was put on the cross. I'm using these as examples. Also, the celebrating the Passover thing at all, much less celebrating it at Easter. I'm using these in order to try and demonstrate discernment. I'm trying to say that when people say this particular day was Easter and is the day that you should celebrate as the day of the resurrection, first of all, I don't believe that you can honestly say that day was Easter. And secondly, and this is more importantly, I think the resurrection of all days, of all celebrations, is the thing that you should be celebrating on a daily basis. You should literally every moment celebrate the fact that Jesus broke death. He destroyed death as a barrier, and he made it possible for people to be resurrected from the dead on that day that he did. Is that day Easter? In my opinion, it's possible, but I honestly have no idea. And guess what? Unlike a lot of people, I don't make that a thing of importance because discernment tells me that's not what you should be concerning yourself with. You should be concerning yourself with the fact that Jesus rose from the dead. You should be concerning yourself with the fact that Jesus died I'm trying to think of the word, sacrifice for mankind. This is what you should be celebrating. Does it matter whether you celebrate it on Easter or some other day? No, I don't think it does. Maybe somebody can make an argument for that, and I wouldn't mind hearing it if it was true. But from a discernment perspective, I don't think that, or celebrating the Passover as if you were a Jew when you're not, you're under the new covenant. Not to say we should ignore the old one. Not to say we shouldn't take messages and lessons from the old one every day. But when I hear people talking about putting the Ten Commandments on the court in the courthouse square or whatever, I'm not saying you can't or shouldn't do that, but I am questioning whether or not that is really where you should be. And that, again, is a function of discernment in my mind. Look, I believe God set a more stringent standard for Christians than he had for Jews. A more stringent standard. And I believe part of the reason he did that was the same thing that he did with the law, to show mankind that we could not handle it. We can't handle it. That being said, the point of all of this is if you let yourself be sucked into various things and set apart from things that are important by people bringing up piddly things that aren't, you are not using discernment, in my opinion. That's my view on things. And as far as I'm concerned, you need to start considering that something that's important for you to do. As I say, as a young man, I didn't understand it. I didn't think it was something. I thought people were being pretentious and haughty when they did it. Looking back now, some of them maybe were, but a lot of people were really trying to get to the heart of what was needed or wanted for people who were Christian, and come to that for people who were just trying to be good people and do the right thing. You need to understand that until you get to the root of things, until you start at least to search for the root of things, you are dealing with things that probably are not particularly important. This is what you need to get. This is what you need to understand. And I'm not saying this sort of thing in order to make myself look good and great, because I'm not. I don't do well at discernment lots of times, and I have to acknowledge that if I want to get better at doing well at discerning what's important and what's significant. I have to, and what's real for that matter. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap this up. This has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday, the 16th of April of 2022, that end of the Sabbath at sunset today, at the end of the day today. Hope those of you that are believers in the Sabbath and observe it are having a good day today, a good Sabbath. Hope things are going well that way for you. Tomorrow will be Sunday, that beginning of the Christian week, in my viewpoint, the 17th of April of 2022. So hopefully you'll start a new good week on this next day tomorrow. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That would be the Kurt's Religion and Politics page on Facebook, on Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com, on minds.com, on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group there, on Parler, on Gab, on Twitter, or wherever else you happen to be seeing me today or hearing me, one of the two. Subject for today has been discernment, and tomorrow we're going to talk about wage increases, but I want to attack this from a specific perspective. I want to talk about what people say about government wage increase, or how the government accounts wages to have increased. I want to get into that because I think that that's a very important subject, and I want to show you a very specific reason particularly, but I'll probably get into some other stuff as well, why that's an important thing. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on Sunday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This podcast was created on Saturday, the 16th of April of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching today's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. Don't forget to come back tomorrow to check out the next one. Remember, on various platforms, primarily Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, and CloudHub, and the audio podcast, you can subscribe to my content. For the audio podcast, you probably want to use Apple, Google, or Spotify. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. In order to find me on those platforms, you can go to the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, and CloudHub. You can also get to my content on Facebook by finding the Kurt's Religion and Politics page there, minds.com, where you will find me at the Kurt's Religion and Politics group, and Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com as well. You can look there. I post my daily video on various social media sites, really only about 3, Parler, Gab, and Twitter at present. I am at KP Schubert on each of them, and you can find me under them, and you can find the videos under me. You should be able to find my podcasts on Google and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's also on podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. If you're looking for me on various of the podcast sites, you probably want to search Kurt's Religion and Politics, not the Daily Summation. Keep in mind, you can subscribe to my content on various places that I put it. All constructive feedback is welcome. You can like, dislike, add a rumble, or give whatever feedback is available on any of the platforms that you can do such things. You can also add a comment on what I put there. Unless you're advertising or doing something that I believe will harm others, I'll leave your comments out there even if I don't agree with or understand them. I will try to let you know I've seen them when possible and may reply if I feel it's reasonable, appropriate, and possible, of course. Thanks again for viewing this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. Don't forget to come back again for tomorrow's as well.